Okay, so you've got another agree or disagree. To what extent do you agree? Increasing the price of petrol is the best way to solve growing traffic and pollution problems. To what extent do you agree or disagree? What other measures do you think might be effective? Okay, so when we're thinking about task achievement, okay, we're giving our opinion. Do you agree or disagree? And you've got to give a proposed solution. Okay, so in order to make sure you've hit all the task achievements, you've got to make sure you're doing both those things. So let's look at the introduction. When it comes to raising the cost of fuel, there is a growing debate over whether it is the best means to decrease environmental issues or not. Decrease environmental issues sounds a little bit odd. We wouldn't really use decrease in this way. Best means to reduce. You can reduce an issue. You don't really decrease an issue. To reduce environmental issues or not. Although higher petrol prices could cut down traffic jams temporarily, I feel that other measures could be more efficient. Okay, I really like this introduction. Why do I like this introduction? Because first off, they do try and do a paraphrase of the information. That's good. Then they give me their opinion. I feel that other methods could be more efficient. And they've told me why. They think they disagree, and they're going to base that on efficiency. Okay? So they've given me an indication of the reason why they agree or disagree. So they've not just said, I feel that this is not true. They said, I feel other methods could be more efficient. So they've given me some of their reasoning. Why? Because some methods are more efficient than other methods. Also, they use the word temporarily. We could cut down on things temporarily. So they've let me know how are they going to evaluate. They're going to look at long and short-term reasons. Okay. So they've also given me an indication that in the rest of the essay, they're going to do some evaluation based on long or short-term factors. Okay. So this is quite a high-level sentence. I like it a lot because they've given their opinion in a more sophisticated way. And as a reader, they've given you hints. What is their opinion and why are they going to argue that? So we go into the first paragraph. On the one hand, there are arguments in favor of raising higher fuel prices for vehicles. One of the main reasons can be that people tend to drive their own cars, even short distances, due to convenience. For instance, people are getting used to this handy lifestyle and it leads to unhealthy problems in the near future. Handy lifestyle, too informal for an IELTS essay. People are getting used to this. We've already used convenience. People are getting used to this. I could just say to this lifestyle, or you're getting used to this way of life, or sedentary life. So sedentary means you're not moving, you're staying still a lot, and it leads to unhealthy problems in the near future. I wouldn't recommend this kind of focuses on health and healthy and unhealthy, because the reasons we're supposed to be focusing on traffic and car related problems, not really health problems. So sure, people think if you're driving everywhere you have health problems, but that's not really the focus of this essay. Another reason can be that when people feel the price highly, when people feel prices are too high, the drivers, especially car owners, can have an opportunity to use public transportation. I mean, the price of fuel doesn't affect your opportunity to use public transport. Public transport is there as an opportunity. You have the choice to use public transport, whether the price of fuel is high or low. What it really does is it creates an incentive. You can have an incentive to use public transportation. The incentive to use public transportation is it's cheaper than paying for fuel. So it's not an opportunity, it's an incentive. You can have an incentive to use public transportation, such as trains, buses, and so on. Therefore, people are more likely to get good health mentally and physically. Again, the sort of idea of health or unhealth, So they say the question's asking you to look at traffic and pollution problems. So I think the person who wrote this question, they're thinking about congestion, they're thinking about traffic jams, they're thinking about pollution. I suppose if you're talking about air pollution, you could link that to health in terms of like lung cancer or asthma. Those kind of diseases are linked to cities with lots of traffic. But I feel like what this candidate is getting at is that people who drive are sort of becoming overweight or getting obese. So they're making that jump, but they're not really talking about the problems that the question is asking you to talk about. So again, so the idea of becoming unhealthy because you're driving everywhere isn't really linked to pollution or traffic. And mental and physical health also isn't really linked to traffic. So, it's not really linked very strongly to the question. So that's my issue. And it's kind of vague. So if they were being very specific about it, I think that would help a little bit more. So if you're saying it leads to unhealthy problems in the near future, or, it leads to, so here is when you would talk about like congestion. Here you could sort of talk about how it leads to increased CO2 or car fumes. So we talk about fumes, you can talk about car exhausts, and then you could then link that to lung cancer or asthma or breathing issues. Okay, and so that would be more linked to what the question wants you to talk about than this candidate is thinking about obesity, is what they're thinking about. On the other hand, in my view, enhancing the price of petrol can have a negative effect on poor people who have their own cars. While affluent people do not mind the price, whether the price is low or not, it can be a burdening price for poor. It can be a burden for poor people. Secondly, most people are likely to lose a job related to vehicles. Most people are likely to lose a job related to vehicles like individual taxi drivers, delivery couriers. So here we've got like individual taxi drivers, delivery couriers. They've listed two things with a comma, which is not correct. They should be an and if you're linking two examples, like individual taxi drivers and delivery couriers. Otherwise, you give me a list of three. Now, stylistically, when you're writing things in English, lists of three things sound better. People like hearing lists of three in English. So you would say something like, I got home, I was tired, I was cold, I was exhausted. So you give three things and it sounds better in English. So you'd say individual taxi drivers, delivery couriers, and bus drivers. Or taxi drivers, delivery couriers, and delivery drivers. Something like that. So you would either give a list of three, which sounds better. If you can't think of three examples, link it with an and. So that's a piece of advice I often give to candidates. Stylistically, it sounds good in English. If you can list three examples, it sounds better. Most people like to use related vehicles, individual taxi drivers, and delivery couriers. Therefore, if people do not use to their own cars by increasing high prices, do not use their own cars due to increasingly higher prices, there would be a risk of unemployment for the maintenance of ordinary people's sustentation. This isn't correctly formed word, and I'm not really sure what they're trying to say here. If people do not use their own cars due to increasingly higher prices, there would be a risk of unemployment for, I think what they mean to say here is for working class people, or you could say, or for minimum wage workers. Or one thing that there's like a sort of new phrase in English that we use to sort of describe like, Uber taxi drivers or the people who work for the delivery companies. We call them gig workers. And we refer to this whole industry as like the gig economy. So the idea is that a gig is sort of like a side job, a part-time job, a side hustle. There's different ways to say it in English. But we talk about them as sort of, because you're not really part-time with fixed hours, you're working on a sort of flexible schedule basis. So the phrase that's come up quite recently in English to describe these people is gig workers. So there will risk unemployment for working class people and gig workers, or something like that. And then for the reasons mentioned above, I totally disagree with the opinion that raising the price of fuel is worthless because it could blow up economical exacerbation to our society. Economical exacerbation could blow up to informal. You would need to say something like, it could cause severe economic problems in our society. It could cause extreme economic hardship to people in our society. Something like that would be more formal. I like how this candidate is sort of dividing up people. I like this whole point about poor people versus richer people. I think that's a very strong argument about why it's not actually going to, solve problems. It's just going to create more issues for poor people. But again, they're talking about economic problems, and what the question is asking you to talk about is traffic and pollution problems. Okay, so is it the best way to solve traffic and pollution? This person has not answered that in their question. They've said that it can reduce health problems. They've said it can cause economic issues, but what they've not done is they've not linked it to traffic or pollution, which is a big issue. And then additionally, they've not done the other part of the question. What measures do you think might be effective? They've not given an alternative solution to the issue. Okay? So this is a real problem, that this candidate has not read the question carefully. They've not planned out their answer. And before they started writing, they've not checked whether their plan addresses everything in the question, which is the real issue and is going to mark them down for it. Okay? So for task achievement, I have to give them a low score. They've not addressed all parts of the question. They've made an effort, but they've not linked it specifically to what the question wants them to talk about. Coherence and cohesion, I thought was pretty good. Coherence and cohesion. I thought their vocabulary was pretty good. Like they've got some good vocabulary. Affluent people, delivery couriers. That's like a good phrase. You've had a couple of issues: sustentation, economical exacerbation. So they've got some inaccuracies. They're trying to use higher level words, but with some sort of inaccuracies. So vocabulary, I guess I would give them probably a 5.5 for vocabulary. And grammar's pretty good. They use a good mix of sentences. They've got only had a couple of sort of smaller issues with that, so I thought that was kind of okay. So again, I would give like a 5.5 for grammar. But the task achievement really pulled them down. So I think this is maths for me again. I think if this was worked out, I think it would work out at a 4.5, maybe a 5. I can't do the maths in my head, but I feel like this essay probably deserves a 4.5 overall just because of the task achievement. So if I was giving advice to this candidate, I would be telling them, you need to plan your answer. You need to check the question. Read the question twice before you start writing. Read the question, write a plan, read the question again. Does your plan address the question? Some candidates, especially the weaker ones, who struggle to write enough in the time given, think they need to start writing straight away because they know the time is tight and they know that they struggle to write 250 words. That is just practice. You need to practice writing faster. And one way that makes you a faster writer is when you've already planned out what you're going to say. So if you've already planned out your argument, the points that you're going to make, the examples you're going to give, your writing will be faster anyway. Okay? In order to make sure that you're fully answering the question, you really need to plan, read the question twice, and then start writing, because that's going to help you speed up, and that's what you need to practice.